What does life look like over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years for Jason Portnoy?
Shattered marriages, no time with my kids. I'm going to be a billionaire.
Billionaire lifestyle is very different from the lifestyle that it took to become a billionaire.
For me, time is more valuable than money. And if I could buy back time, then I'll do it every day.
Most people want to build a business to find freedom, but they end up building just a bigger prison.
If I told you I had 100-person team, you're like, oh, Jason, wow, you run 100-person team. For me, it's like, man, I could probably be way more efficient with 75 people and make more money. And
what do you feel like is the biggest mistake that a lot of brands are making right now when it comes to media buying?
Not knowing their numbers. Everything comes down to that. But the difference between a personal brand and a business brand, I mean, I get asked this a lot. If I had to choose one, it would be the personal brand.
Jason, I'm really excited to connect with you. One, to do this interview because we've known each other for a few years now. And I really, really look up to you for everything that you've done. From on the publishing side, from your podcast over the years, to your book, to all the success you've had in the e-commerce space. You're someone that I really look up to, and I'm really, really glad to call you a friend. And with that being said, let's just start off with your background and really, how did you get started in this wild world of digital marketing and advertising?
Well, first off, thank you for the kind words. And it's 100% mutual. I feel the same way about you and what you've been able to do. And I think that's why we vibe. I think we're both true and honest people, and we get along in that sense. And we don't like the BS that's been out in our industry a little bit. So we kind of bonded on that. But thank you for starters. My background, I thought I would go to law school my whole life. Well, first I thought I was going to go to medical school. That didn't work out. I hate blood. So kind of there goes being a doctor. And then I was like, okay, law school would sound good. I got into law school twice. I declined both times. School just wasn't my jam, and spending 4 or 5, whatever years extra of school to do something you don't even know if you're going to love just sounded like a giant waste of time for me. And I thought of like the TV lawyers. That's kind of what I want to be, like a lawyer on TV. But any lawyer I spoke to, that doesn't exist in real life. They're working their asses off. They're working nights. They're working weekends. That didn't really interest me. So I was like, well, the guy on TV looks good, but if that's made up, then I don't want to do that. And then I was kind of lost, man. Like I had no clue what I wanted to do. All my friends were either in school or getting good jobs. And I was a bit lost, and I took a job. I was doing business development for a recruitment firm. In fact, I didn't even get the job. It was a friend of someone I know, like within the community where we live, knew that person was looking for someone, said, hey, just give Jason a chance, give this kid a chance. And they took me on. So it wasn't even like I applied for a job and got it. Every other job I applied for, I didn't get. And I went there, and that's when I started realizing it wasn't just school, it's authority. Like I'm not good with having to ask for permission to take a day off, or having to ask to leave or take a longer lunch break. Well, that wasn't really my style. And literally one night I had a dream that I created this t-shirt with a saying on it, and the t-shirt got pressed and everything like that. And I'm like, cool, that's a cool idea. I want to do that. And I was like, I have so many ideas. And I started jotting down all the ideas I had for different t-shirts in the sports world. And I was like, I'm going to start a one-stop shop for like the sports fan, but not jerseys, but really true brand for the sports fan. And that was the only thing I had to go with. And I quit my job, which bad advice. Don't do that.
How old were you at the time?
Probably old enough where I should have not have done that.
Old enough. Sure,
I'm not going to say like 16. Better. I'm not going to tell you it's 16 and I should have known better.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s. I should have known better, but hey, I'm just going to run with it. And all my life, I think that's a theme in my life. If I have to look back so far on the 40 plus years that I've been on this planet, is I've always marched to the beat of my own drum and kind of have it all work out. And yeah, so I quit my job, launched a clothing brand, didn't know what I was doing. I paid like $14,000 for a website at the time. This was like 2008, I think. Paid $14,000 to build a website, made like $5 in sales. So I was like, this is done. So I had to go take another job. I went back to take another job, and on that job I got mono. and I was sick for like 3 months, like really, really bad.
Oh man.
It was like really, really, really bad. And then I was like, hey, I think I half-assed this. This is a good idea, but I half-assed it. Like I was like half in doing things. What if I actually really focused on what I wanted to do here? And I started reaching out to like Damon John. And Damon John, I don't think Shark Tank came out yet. He wrote a book, read the book. He said, I love helping entrepreneurs. Reach out if you're an entrepreneur. So I'm like, cool, I'll do it. Went on Twitter, reached out to him, got a DM with his website. I was like, that doesn't help me. Reached out to him again. Finally, his assistant reached back out to me. I scored a meeting. Long story short, scored a meeting. Went to New York, met him at his office. He took a liking to me. We started meeting once a quarter, and he truly helped me build the brand. And we rebuilt the brand on Shopify. So I was like one of the first Shopify stores back in 2011, and rebuilt the brand. And we were sold in over 250 stores across North America. And that kind of gave me my introduction to business. And I hated every moment of the clothing brand. I hated inventory. I was also, again, not smart enough to realize that I shouldn't be doing the things I didn't want to do. And when you do things that don't align with your goals or mission, it burns you out. That's where true burnout really comes from. So I felt like I was getting burnt out. I was unhappy. I was newly married at the time. My wife looked at me and said, hey, you meet with a lot of people to discuss marketing branding, because people saw what I did with the brand and they wanted to sit down with me and go for lunch and talk about how they could do it for their business. And I was doing a lot of these free lunches. And my wife was like, look, someone asks you for marketing, you talk their ear off for like an hour. I ask you a question about this brand, the brand and the clothing business, and you go cold. So I don't know what it is. Figure it out, because if we're going to have a family one day, you can't be like this. And she was 100% right. And I was like, I love helping people build their brands. And that's how I started an agency. So I didn't start an agency because it was a cool thing to do, or because, hey, I like social media, I'll play around with it. I literally just fell into it. And I was lucky. First brand I ever took on was doing $2,500 a month in sales, scaled them to 300,000, and the rest is kind of history. And from there, grew an agency in ECOM. Now we do other stuff besides ECOM, and started a consulting firm. I mean, that's a long story of my background, but
oh, thanks for sharing. And I think another reason we jive and get along well is, my story is very similar. I didn't have a clothing brand, but I started my e-commerce wine business and wine subscription club. It was very much the same way. Like customer support, inventory, cash flow management with physical goods was paralyzing to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when I get asked by clients, like, man, you're so good at this, why don't you just start your own? I'm like, I don't like doing that stuff at all.
Because I don't want to.
Moving fast. I like the flywheel I'm on and leading the teams I'm on, and it's very much the same way. And that's exciting. And like you said, it comes down to what's your zone of genius and what excites you, and do more of what excites you, less of what paralyzes you.
Yeah, look, when I started the coaching business, it was called market domination method. It was very like alpha. And that's not me. And we were on vacation with the family. It was like probably my first family vacation I've ever taken with them, and first vacation in a while where I actually disconnected from work. And I was on there and I realized, like, man, this is what I want. This is it. Like, I'm chasing the wrong things. I want this. And I think that's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, is they try to make their life fit their business. But your business is the vehicle to live the life you want. So start the other way. Don't figure out, what type of business you want and then try to fix your life into it and then justify with in order to build this, I have to work these late nights. I have to do all these things. Figure out the type of life you want and then just build a business around that. I know so many people who are trying to build $25 million businesses, and they'd probably have more profit, like bigger profit margins, and more sanity and more happiness if they just stayed a $5 million business.
There's a lot of ego in numbers. And as we know, it's like whether that benchmark's a $25 million benchmark, a 50 million, a 100 million, in this business, there's so much bullshit around people saying that they actually hit those numbers, and it's all ego. And
it's vanity metrics. Yeah. You know this. It's like, your screenshots mean nothing. Show me the screenshot of your bank accounts. Show me the screenshot of you being on vacation with your family. Show me those things.
Yep, 100%. Show me the screenshot of you getting off work at a certain time to go do something. Like,
yeah, man.
Firstly, for me, I go to the gym every day at 4. CrossFit gym down the street, literally takes a 2-minute drive from my house. I'm there at 4 every day. The fact that I can go to the gym at 4 and work out with all my good friends, like all my really close friends now, I work out with every day. That's priceless to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely priceless. You
And
know,
you built your business for you to do that,
yep.
right?
Yep. We start at 6 a.m. Pacific because we work East Coast hours. So I start early,
Yeah.
but by 2, 3,
Hey,
you know,
everything has a trade-off, right?
absolutely, absolutely. But you build a business around it. And I 100% agree. You brought up such a good point. Is like most people want to build a business to find freedom, but they end up building just a bigger prison. And if you don't know what you're doing, that prison can become way more dangerous and way more of a financial liability than what you were doing before, you know? So it's a trade-off of knowing what you're trying to do and how much and your risk tolerance over time, you know?
Totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing right now? Like what I mean is what like you started the agency, you've been running the agency, and you mentioned you've got the coaching business too. What's been the evolution of you transitioning and still like running the agency and having the coaching business? Like I think that's a good point for lifestyle and family and what you're passionate about. How has that evolved?
Look, Dan Martell has this coined the term, right? Buy back your time. That's really what it comes down to. For me, time is more valuable than money. And if I could buy back time, then I'll do it every day. So for the agency side, there's a lot of people who are very busy, but they're busy being busy. And that's just being lazy because you haven't prioritized or figured out what you need to do. So I think for me, my biggest bottleneck was, okay, I was in the weeds on so many different things. How do I get out of those weeds? Right. So I knew what I want my life to look like. So it's all reverse engineering. Same way with an e-commerce brand, right? If you want to know how to scale, you got to reverse engineer from where you want to be. So I reverse engineered what I wanted, and I was like, okay, what gives me what gives me that freedom? What can I be doing that gives me that freedom that makes me happy? Well, I love helping entrepreneurs, right? Well, cool. I have the agency and I could have consulting. Consulting gives me way more time, gives me time back, right? There's less like you're not in the weeds as much as when you run an agency, when you do like coaching or consulting. So, all right, cool. How do I do that? Well, in order to do that, the agency has to get to a certain point that I could step away. How do I get the agency to a certain point? Well, I need to free up my time. What's the bottleneck? Solve the bottleneck. So my first bottleneck was get out of the admin stuff. Right? I need an EA. I need someone who could take over admin, take over communications. Great. Well, actually, even before that, I need to be the one not in the ad accounts. Cool. So I need to have media buyers. Now I need to get out of the weeds on the admin stuff. Well, now I have an EA. Well, cool. Now I need someone who can make systems and operations. Well, now you need an ops person. And here's the mistake I think a lot of people make is they think team size matters, right? Like some sort of like you talked about pride and ego, revenue, team size, complete vanity metrics, right? Most businesses that will quote you and most people are and it's not their fault because the most people they talk to, they show like this like reverence. If I told you I had 100-person team, you're like, oh, Jason, wow, you run 100-person team. For me, it's like, man, I could probably be way more efficient with 75 people and make more money. And I think you're just losing money. That's the way I look at things. So for me, it's more about you could buy back your time, but not necessarily hire full time. Hire a hired gun. Find a hired gun. You know, if we weren't doing any email marketing and we wanted to have email as a service, cool. I could go reach out to someone like you, Mark, and be like, hey, let's partner on this. Let's do this. I have a hired gun. I don't need to go hire a full-time email marketing person to join my team for one account, right? Yeah. Like there's ways to do it. I don't need an EA full-time if it's just answering emails. I could hire a VA to do all those things. So I think there's a mixture. I think I prefer lean as possible. I think most businesses are bloated on OpEx, especially e-com businesses are bloated on OpEx. And I prefer just hiring guns, but it's really just solving the bottleneck as you go forward. So that's really it. Reverse engineering from where you want. And then, okay, what's the first bottleneck that prevents you from doing that next step? Hire to solve that. Unless you're making money, there's no right way to say it. There's no, like, everyone has to start, picking up the crap themselves, and undoing all those things. Like there's no way around it. You have to start from somewhere. So once you're in a financial ability to do so, start solving every bottleneck.
I couldn't agree more. That's awesome. Where do you think the e-com space is going to be going in regards to like agency service provider over the next couple of years. I think there's an interesting, and the reason I bring this up is like there's always been a push and pull on like agency versus internal. And it's like when times are good, it's like companies ramp up and staff up. When times get tough, it's like relying on service provider. So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on it?
It's interesting. It's a good question. There's always been those pros and cons. One of the biggest cons is, well, an agency doesn't live, eat, and breathe your brand. They're not an employee. They're not available 24/7. They're not there inside your office that can answer a question the moment you need an answer. That's probably the biggest con. And I'll put this one on the side. I'll circle back to it. People think it's cheaper to hire a media buyer in-house, right, versus an agency. And maybe dollar to dollar when you're looking at it, it is. But I'm going to explain why that's not a true con. But I'm saying this with bias as an agency owner,
Yeah.
but I'm also trying to be as realistic as possible. There is a time where you may want to bring things in-house. There may come a point for every business where they want things in-house. And I get that. But then if you look at the biggest businesses in the world, they all have ad agencies. So, Apple could afford to hire advertisers in-house. They have ad agencies. So there goes that. The biggest pro of hiring an agency is that we don't live in a silo. So what we take is, I'll use you as an example. Someone comes to you for email marketing and they had someone in-house build something and it's not working. They don't know what's going on across the globe, across multi other accounts. For us, for media buying, they don't know. Like, we could take lessons from bigger brands, from smaller brands. We can see what's working across different things. If Meta's having a bad day, we know it's across all accounts, and we know not to just, get really worried and throw our hands up and start panicking, versus if it's your only brand and Meta's having a bad day and you don't know that, now you're on every forum trying to figure it out. And that's if you're smart. If you're not, you're just panicking and shutting everything off because it's like, wow, what happened to Meta today? But you could kind of tell, and you could kind of look at things. You could see trends. So that's the biggest thing from having an agency. And the reason why I said cost is not a true con is because that's for one media buyer. One media buyer versus one agency maybe is a bit cheaper to hire the media buyer in-house. Maybe they're probably close to the same amount if you want a true media buyer. But you're not just buying one media buyer when you hire an agency. You're buying a team. And if you add up all that team, if you want to build that team in-house, will cost you way more than that. And I think that's what people don't realize. But yeah, I think agencies have shot themselves in the foot sometimes because they may have gotten greedy and they've charged a lot. And there's human emotion when it comes to it, right? With CFO who's writing a check to an agency doesn't understand the things I'm saying. And they're like, man, we're writing this guy Mark a check for $100,000. I don't even make $100,000, right? Why am I doing that? And they don't realize it's not Mark, it's Mark's team. There's
Absolutely.
like 7 people working on your account there.
And the results
that are
tied directly to revenue. Yeah.
And there was 100%. Look, it doesn't matter if you're not getting results. It doesn't matter if you charge $1 or $10,000. Whatever you charge has to be justified in the results you bring to them. You should only be paid for the value you bring to somebody, right? So I think that's how I have to look at it. But there's human emotion that comes to it. You have a new ECOM director who comes into a brand, and guess what? He has connections to friends in other agencies. So he looks at it, wants to make a big difference. So what does he do? He tells the CEO, your agency is charging you too much. We could definitely save money, slash this. I know another agency that I've worked with. They'll do it for less. We'll save around $20,000 a year. And guess what? You're fired the next day. So I think there's this little dance that has to happen, but I think that's really the big pros and cons of agency in-house versus outsourced.
Yeah, I agree. Where do you see you guys focusing mostly right now on the agency side? Is there a specific niche that you guys are in, or are you guys across the board doing e-com and some other things as well?
We're across the board. Look, as an agency owner, from an agency side, it's way easier to be in services. Real estate, financial advisors. Those funnels are like pretty straightforward. E-commerce, every brand is completely different. So every brand is different. Every brand has a different price point. Every brand has, a different audience that they need to reach.
Own challenges. its own
its
seasons.
own
Yeah.
challenges, own seasons. You named it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like being across different verticals. I also really love looking at what other verticals are doing, like SaaS companies, for example, what they're putting out there and seeing how that could work for an e-com brand.
Yeah.
You know, free trials versus get a free shirt and sample us, right? Like there's all the different things. So I think most brands should probably look at other verticals and see what they're doing successfully and then try to take that and bring it into theirs instead of monkey see, monkey do. Oh, this brand's doing this ad in this color and this color. I'm going to make my ad in this color because it must be working for them. And they lack zero context into why they chose those colors. And then it's just the blind leading the blind pretty much.
Absolutely. What do you feel like is the biggest mistake that a lot of brands are making right now when it comes to media buying in general?
Not knowing their numbers. Everything comes down to that. I want a CPA of this. Why? They probably don't have the answer to back it back into that number. I want a ROAS of this. Why? They probably don't know the answer to back into that. It's all made up. Oh, well, because if it's $100, I want 4 times, so I want $25 CPA. Well, what's your lifetime value? I don't know. Well, what if we paid $100 to acquire a customer and they're worth $2,000 to you in 6 months? Oh, well, that sounds good. Well, now you just change your whole. So it's not knowing the numbers and then believing in vanity metrics as the most important thing. Everyone wants to talk about ROAS, but if that's not what if that's not your goal? What if acquisition is your goal, right? So you'd be surprised.
There's
We
so
have
many
agency
ways to
client.
manipulate. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's so many ways you can manipulate an ad spend into to
for
get
sure.
a direct ROAS.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I don't believe in doing that because I could just put all your money into your own audience and retarget them and have a pretty good ROAS, but you wouldn't be bringing in any new customers. And I'd look at it this way. I try to be as transparent as possible with clients, but you'll see even the clients you have who think they get it, they'll give you their goal of, hey, I want these are the metrics I'm looking for. And then every single one of those metrics contradict the metric before that. Because I'm like, how can you get this by doing that? Oh, well, I also want this. Well, this contradicts your first one. So hands down. And this isn't e-com. I consult business owners across different verticals. They don't know their numbers. And you could get to 1 million plus. You can without knowing your numbers and think you're really good. But then when you try to scale and nothing's working and you're breaking and you're plateauing, you have to look yourself in the mirror and then realize the fact that you don't know your numbers. And it's not luck. You could get to 1 million without knowing a lot of those things. Very hard to get past that.
Great advice. Love it. And what would you say is the framework that brands need to really scale to multiple 7 figures or to 8 figures from there, besides numbers? Would you say there's a framework that you help coach on or mentor on that they need to do to break you? Because like you said, I think a big thing is one of them, you got to know your numbers to get further than that. But what else would you recommend to brands that are looking to break through that next level?
The question would be scale for what, right? So where are you trying to get to? And if they tell me, all right, we're at 1 million, we're trying to get to 10 million. All right, are we trying to get to 10 million or are we trying to get to like, and why do you want to get to 10 million? What does profitability look like there? Can we achieve that same profitability by getting you to 4 million? Can you have the same amount of cash in your bank at 4 million than you do at 10 million? Because at 10 million, you're adding complexities into your business, whether you like it or not, right? Now you need a bigger team, bigger inventory, different problems. Yeah, certain costs go down the more you order for products, but you have different complexities and more, I guess your OpEx becomes a bit more bloated that way. But if you can stay lean and do 4 million and cash flow 1 million versus 10 million in cash flow 1.2 million, I don't know. What's the trade-off that I want? I could be more peace of mind. So I like to push back anytime someone just gives me a number. So there's no real framework. It all starts with knowing what you want. How do you want the business to look? Why do you want those things? What are you willing to pay to get those things, right? Because everything has a price. You want to get to 100, you want to be a billionaire, but then you tell me you want to be at every kid recital, like every play, you want to be at every family event, you never want to travel. Well, good luck, right? You have to sacrifice. And that's where people stay stuck. The number one way people stay stuck is because there's a disconnect kind of maybe, I guess, between the heart and the brain of what they truly want and say they want versus what they're also saying they want. So like, but it's like, I want to be a billionaire. I want to work 2 hours a day. Well,
They don't work.
you can't
Yeah.
you can't move. One's
Yeah.
trying to move you towards $1 billion, and the other's trying to protect you and won't let you hit $1 billion because it's protecting you on your 2 hours a day. So when you're trying to do something and push through something, and then you keep finding yourself moving backwards, I take a break and walk backwards for a second and realize, all right, what belief do I have that's preventing me from doing this? And if it's like, well, the belief and the value I have is I want to be at every family thing. I don't want to miss a moment in my kid's life. They're little. I want to be able to work 4 days a week and spend the fifth day with my kid. Well, very, very hard to get to a billion. So we have to have a real conversation with ourselves.
100%. If you want to have a great relationship with your kids, if you want to stay married and you want great health, it's going to be very challenging to become a billionaire.
Yeah,
There's very few billionaires that have all that.
But here's the problem, right? People look at the billionaires right now and they're like, they're traveling. Like, first of all, you're looking at them at the end result,
Yeah.
not the 20 years that it took them to become that.
Billionaire lifestyle is very different from the lifestyle that it took to become a billionaire, which is 100% right.
100%. And I don't know if you've ever really sat down with billionaires. I've sat down with a few and I've interviewed, and I've interviewed and spoken to them. They're not normal people. They're like psychopaths compared to someone like you. Compared to someone like you and I, they're psycho. I can say I want to be a billionaire as much as I want, but I don't think I have what it takes to be a billionaire. Like, I don't have that extreme psychoness of like, one thing matters, everything else, family, everything, like nothing else matters except for hitting for this. Elon Musk wanted to get to Mars and build that and do all that. He is so singular focused that it's at the expense of everything else. Mark Zuckerberg ruined friendships, lifetime friendships, and everything like that to build Meta, right? Like, these people are like ruthless and you're looking at them now. You're like, well, look, they seem nice. They give a lot to charity. I want to give a lot to charity. I'd question whether you really have what it takes to be a true billionaire. Not many people on the planet do, and that's why there's not that many. I mean, there's more now than there used to be, but very hard to hit a billion.
I can tell that, just by everything you're saying, it's like looking back at, there's lifestyle, there's a bucket of like, when you're trying to plan your life, and I'm sure with the coaching that you do with, in the mentorship you do with your clients, but it's like looking at what type of lifestyle you want to live is one piece. Where do you want relationships to be, right? Because like you said, a lot of the billionaires that I know have very, very bad relationships with people. They have very few friends, true friends, and they have very, not that great relationships with family, and they've been divorced at least once or multiple times. So, it's like, those are sacrifices that if you're going to get to that level, not saying that it's not possible to have good relationships here and there, but most people are going to have those issues to get to where they want to go. Yeah.
Just think about the dedication and focus you need to hit a billion, right? We're talking to people who are trying to hit 5 million and they're already find that they don't have enough time in a day, right? So imagine the focus and dedication, what you need to cut out of your life to actually hit a billion. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that just be honest. Like, figure out what you really want. Figure out what your dream life is worth. Hey, you want to go on 3 family vacations this year. You want this, and this. What does that look like on paper? That's the number you need. Okay, how much does my business need to make in order to give me that salary? And build that business. And it's okay to move the goalposts later, but that's the starting point.
I love that. What does life look like over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years for Jason Portnoy? Like, what type of life are you looking to build right now? I know you got
shattered marriages, no time with my kids. I'm going to be a billionaire. No, a thriving agency, helping thousands of entrepreneurs through the coaching and consulting, build their business. Because I don't think everyone's in the place to hire an agency, and things that we're talking about right now are not things an agency is going to solve for you.
Totally.
So helping you figure that out, this is the sweet spot. That's what I love. And then when you're ready for that, guess what? I got a team that could definitely take care of you. But let's get you figured out first. And that's why I love the coaching side. And, I have 3 really small kids right now, and I only get, those 10 years with them that I'm the center of the universe and the person they look up to and that the person they want. And I try to remind myself that when my son's 6, I have two boys and a girl, boy, 6, 4, and 18 months. And when my son is like, we try to tell him, we put a clock in his room, like you can't leave your room till this time in the morning, because he used to get up really early. He'll still do it, and he'll come into my room, come into bed, and say, "I just want to lie down with you." And like my wife and I were like, "Hey, back to your room until the clock turns green," right? And because we have to teach him. And here's the hardest part of like, that's why I don't think there's a way to be perfectly parented, right? Or to be a perfect parent. Like part of me is like, yeah, I want to send him back to his room, because one is I want to sleep for 10 more minutes. Number two is we need to teach him when we say something, we mean it. Because if I just let him go, he'll do this every single morning. And the other part is there's going to be a time where I'm going to have to wake him up to get out of bed. He's going to yell at me to get out of his room, tell me he hates me. And I'll be his least favorite person. There's only time right now, like where I'm his best friend, and this
he's
like,
excited to wake up early to see your face.
Oh man, he came into my room. What was it? Like around 2 weeks ago, I was playing basketball, so I missed bedtime, and I had a basketball game, and he came into my room at 2:45 in the morning, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I didn't get to say goodnight to you, so I want to give you a hug and kiss. I love you." And he ran back to his room.
Wow.
And my wife's like, "We got to talk to him." I'm like, no. I'm like, that is amazing. She's like, "You're not mad that he woke you up at 2:45?" And once I'm up, I'm very hard to fall back asleep. I'm that type of person. But I was like, man, that is incredible. So I'm only going to get those times. So right now I'm trying to figure out that balance of like everyone else in the world, I'm trying to figure out how do I grow, but also make sure that I don't have to miss those things. I used to love traveling for work. Now traveling for work gets really, really, really hard because I miss the kids and I want to come home, and I'm being pulled away. It's also, I put my wife who's very supportive in a bad position, because she has to like stay at home and be with the kids nonstop without any help. So the next 3 to 5 years or whatever it is really continue doing what I'm doing, grow, and just making sure that amplify the coaching consulting. We have a motto: make better businesses and humans. I think you look at the world, and we're getting off of e-commerce right here and business, but you look at the world, I think you either have parents who work too hard and miss out on the kids, or parents who want to be best friends with their kids even when they're 18 and they don't do a good job raising them and give them values. I think we have a breakdown of value system being taught in families right now. And man, that's on us. I can't let the school, I can't let YouTube or an iPad dictate the value system in the family. So, I take that job probably more seriously than I take owning an agency or that. Like, I want to make sure that they see the values, that they understand daddy and mommy work hard, right? There's value in that, but there's a family dynamic that we're not going to get. And if I think we do that, if we could teach business owners that you could have both, it's a choice. You're making a choice to not have both, but you could have both. Well, then you'll build a better business that makes you more happy, and you'll raise better humans and make better humans. So I think that's 100%. Where my next 5 to 10 years is really focused.
I love that, Jason. That's awesome. It's interesting you brought up values. And I think just overall, when you're starting a business and people are like, what's your mission statement? What's your vision? What are your values? And those I feel like are the hardest thing to ever even come up with, because you don't know what this thing is that you built, right? But as you get older and as you build something, it's like values, mission, and vision are more important to me than they've ever been before. And I use this example when we're working with clients as well, where it's like we're on a ship and we're sailing, right? And I'm a big sailor, but I used to like to use that, but it's like we got to navigate towards the same North Star, right? And if we're going to go there, then we need to have the same mission where we're going. We need to have the same vision where we're going. And we got to have the same values to know how to treat each other along the way. And if you don't have those things, whether personally and in business with your employees, with your clients, like it becomes very challenging to get anything done because no one's on the same page.
Want a tip that someone gave me? Because you're 100% right. And I was I was having those problems too. Like, how do I could create my own values, right? But it's hard to do it for a business because a business is like a face. For most business owners that I deal with, they're not at the $100 million mark with like boards and whatnot. Start with bringing your own values into your business, because you're building the business for the life you want, right? And if you do that, and you bring your mission into your personal mission and values, and you bring that into your business, well, guess what? You're going to attract the type of people that support your personal mission. It makes things easier because there's going to be no conflict in how you want to grow. You'll be happy because now your business aligns with your life instead of your life trying to fight the alignment of your business. So I think that's where people could have, and you could take it like, if you're like family first, that's your personal mission, or your one of your personal principles. Let's say it's family first. Well, you could bring that into your business. We are family first focused. So what does that mean? That means if you're part of the team, or you're a client who's now part of this, you're part of the team, you're part of our family. And loyalty and respect are not just encouraged, they're demanded, right? And that goes both ways. So that's how you take a personal mission that you bring and now incorporate it back into your business.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. It's interesting in this like remote world we live in. Personally, at us at Breadloaf, like a couple of things we've been doing internally and then externally with clients. On the external side, we've actually started like flying clients in to doing like, 1 to 2 day intensives, or if they're local and we have like the same co-working space that we'll just get a boardroom at, and have certain team members call in. But even just having some FaceTime with clients and putting in, a half a day or a full day here and there, it's helping so much on strategic planning. And, you have a full day, we'll do different sessions, we'll take breaks, get lunch, go out to dinner together. And it's crazy how much we can get done in person. And then internally, one thing that we're actually starting to do, and, we've got big team in Ukraine and now in Belarus, Croatia, and Austria. So we're all across North America and Canada and in the US, we're starting to do mini retreats. We bring a couple team members together. So I'm planning one for the European team minus the Ukrainians that can't leave the country still. But we're going to do an offsite like in the Austrian Alps, hopefully in March. Cool. And, do two days strategic planning with the team, and then a day of hopefully going skiing, rent a big chalet, get together. And I feel like those things are so important to, like I said, align with the mission and let people know what you're looking to accomplish, and let this known that what we do together is more than just a job. Yeah.
Yeah. I always look at the big companies like even like a guy like Gary Vee, for example, where people are begging to work there. They'll stay late. They'll do everything. Like, what is it about that fosters that type of environment, those type of people working? And I think they buy into his mission. I think he's very clear about what he stands for and what it is, and people buy into it. And when they buy into something, they'll work harder than ever for you.
And I 100% agree. And I think it's interesting you brought up Gary Vee as a personality and like who he's become and what he's been. And I know you've had the chance to interview him a couple times in your podcast. One point I wanted to bring up, and just, this isn't even just in ECOM or, with your clients, but with you personally, like, how do you find the balance between what you do on brand building versus direct response when it comes to building your business or coaching other businesses on it? Because, we're living in a world where organic and personal brand is bigger than it's ever been before. But it's also one of those things that can break you down and take over more mental space than ever before. I know personally, like since launching my podcast and starting to build a YouTube channel, I probably put in 20 to 30 times more into it than I actually get out of it. And sometimes I have to take a step back and being like, is this even worth it? Because this is literally the hardest. It's the hardest form of marketing. Running ads is way easier, or running cold outbound, like getting an affiliate program, way easier than building a personality.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, and that's fine. I think people would be a lot happier if they just deleted social media off their phone and didn't see what everyone else is doing and think that they have to do it. It goes back to reverse engineering. Where do you want to be? And I think that's the problem. People see a guy like Gary Vee and they're like, man, Gary's telling me to put out 5 videos a day or whatever it is. I'm not saying he's saying that, but like whatever it is, he's telling me to do this. Now I got to do this. I have anxiety about this. I'm trying to run my brand. I'm trying to do all this. I don't want to do it. And then they fight themselves and they do nothing. And then context matters, right? Like, or they follow somebody and they're like, I got to do it like this because this video got 1 million views. But you don't know why they did it that way. You don't know what their goal was. Maybe their goal was to get 100 million views and they fell short and now they're disappointed in that video. Maybe they pumped a bunch of ad spend into that video and that's how they got 1 million views. You don't know. And if you don't know, it's hard to reverse engineer what someone else is doing, right? I could look at ads people are running and be like, cool, this ad has been running for a while. But I don't know if that ad's actually producing them results. I could be like, oh, this ad's been running for a while. We should copy it. But why? I don't know why they did it. I don't know if this is a split test of something. I don't know if their goal was we don't need to make money off this versus I need to make money off of this. So I think without context, comparison is really poison. But I think it's fine to have someone you look up to. If you're like, hey, I want to be an influencer like Gary Vee, well, then Gary Vee is a good person to look at. But I'd focus less on what the person you're looking at is saying and what they're doing and watch. So sorry, you could look at a guy like Gary and he's like post 5 times a day and he's posting 2 times a day, or he's posting one reel, a carousel, and 7 stories a day. Well, that's what I'd focus on. He didn't tell you to do that, but I focus on what he's doing because chances are he's trying something.
Trying something new.
And
doing the same thing that he talked about 2-3 months ago isn't necessarily what he's doing today.
Correct. But the difference between a personal brand and a business brand, I mean, I get asked this a lot. If I had to choose one, it would be the personal brand. So if someone's like, hey, I got this Instagram page for my business. I also got my own Instagram. I want to put attention to one. I want to do it. Which one should I do? You see this a lot, right? Like look at the top people, business people in the world. Their personal brand's bigger than their business. Elon Musk, his personal brand is way bigger than Tesla or X or whatever it is. Gary Vaynerchuk, his personal brand is way bigger than VaynerMedia or whatever it is. And when I say bigger, it means he could leverage that to do almost anything.
If he wants to make $1 million tomorrow, he can make a couple calls and figure out a way to do it.
One post selling something, and he could probably say, I'm selling this for $1 million and find one buyer. He doesn't have to just be like, hey, I need $1 million of you to pay $1. Which you could probably get also, right? So I think a personal brand is important. And I think it's easier nowadays with AI to have a faceless brand. So I don't even think if someone's truly scared about being on social media, I think for businesses right now, we're seeing a lot more faceless brands running businesses than there is like a personality. And the personality is running it because they're trying to grow their personal brand so they can leverage that into a bunch of other things. So if your business is what you want to grow and you don't care about having a personal brand, focus on that, and you could do that faceless. Even if you hate being on camera, you can make a ton of reels. You have all these different tools and AI tools that are available for you. And if you care about growing your personal brand, good luck. It is a grind. It is hard work. It is the same as having another business.
Yeah, that doesn't pay you.
But that doesn't pay you exactly. Yeah. But it's planting the seeds. Right.
Yeah. So what advice do you have to someone that's looking to build a personal brand? I mean, you've been doing it for years. I mean, you've interviewed some of the top
and I don't even think I'm that great because I get lazy at it, right? Because it's hard work. I'll consistency. And I'll just name the part where I break down the most, right? Because if I was consistent, I'd have 1 million followers by now. I'd have this, but guess what? It's very easy. People are going to say this is hard, but it's very easy to post 5 times a week for 3 months. It is very hard to post 5 times a week for 2 years.
Yeah.
At some point, you sit there, and I'm guilty of this. You look at it and you be like, let's see how I am this time that I'm spending here. Like I grew 15 followers in the last 2 months. I could have spent this time making ads and growing my business and would have generated an extra $150,000 in monthly recurring revenue in those 2 months. Like, where's my time better off being spent? But it all depends what you want to do. So I think if you want to build a personal brand, get ready, get used to it. Now, I think for me, it's more, I'll post when I want to post and find your voice. It's very, very hard to post because then you start feeling like everyone else and you're a sponge. You consume so many people's content and you don't know what to put out, where your voice begins. Where does Gary's stop? Where does Alex Hormozi stop when you're trying to copy his reels? Where does that all stop? So finding your voice is the biggest gift in the world because then you just post and you don't care. Like I post and ghost. I don't even read response. I don't even look at likes. I don't care anymore because I'm not posting for them. I'm posting to get something off my mind or I'm trying to get some sort of feedback. But yeah, it's a grind.
Yeah, it's not easy. Speaking of personal brands, and I wanted to bring this up just because it's relevant, and the whole Kanye thing this week. Absolutely insane, right? Like just absolutely shocking to see that someone would use their brand to do what he did. And
not only use their brand, spend $8 million on a Super Bowl commercial to drive people to it.
Yeah. It's like absolutely wild. I mean, there's something mentally ill with that human. There's some devil inside of him. And yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Thank God Shopify actually took action like that next morning and shut down the whole site.
Well, it took longer than the next
Took
morning.
longer than it should have.
It took
Yeah,
longer than it should have, but I also understand that Harley, who's probably disgusted by it, can't make business decisions off a personal feeling right away.
for sure.
There's boards, there's things that have to happen. The bigger the business, the more red tape you kind of have to go through. You can't just be like, hey, shut down this store. There's repercussions that you have to think about because it sets a precedent. At what point do you not shut down stores? So I understand they have to weigh certain things. I mean, yeah, but you got to go back to like how'd Fox let him run a Super Bowl commercial?
Yeah. Who let
How?
that actually happen?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
mean, like you have to like do some research. There's a bit of breakdown everywhere, but yeah, I mean, you get a personal brand and a personal platform, you can do whatever you want. Like there's a book called The 16-Word Sales Letter by Eduardo Albuquerque. He used to work for Algora, and he wrote a book on copywriting. Really, really good book. And in it, he like says like Hitler was one of the best like persuasive people in the world. And I don't think he was being anti-Semitic in that response, but he had a platform and he used it to deliver hate. You got a platform and deliver a good message. I think being a contrarian, being hateful, just generates more noise than being an optimist and being a positive human being.
Yeah. Well, I think too, when you look at all of these personal brands on social media now, it's like the people that actually have the biggest brands are the ones that say the most outrageous, polarizing things. And I think partial that you and I have a lot of the same values with this. So like, I'm not willing to say ridiculous things just to say ridiculous things. But, like someone like Chris Crone or Grant Cardone or some of these big personalities will say whatever they can, even if it's making something up.
Yeah, look, I think there's a different. Yeah, you're right, but I think a lot of these people, I think there's a difference between being polarizing and speaking in absolutes.
Yeah,
like I think a Grant Cardone and a Gary Vaynerchuk and those people are not dangerous people. They're not like Kanye West spewing anti-Semitic remarks.
That's way different.
Dangerous person.
Completely different.
That's using it to be polarizing and hateful and whatever it is. A Grant Cardone, a Gary Vee, they just speak in absolutes. You have one life to live. Tomorrow you're going to die. This is the way to do it. Owning a house is your biggest liability, right? Like they're just speaking in absolutes. And when you're speaking absolutes, you become a contrarian because everyone tries to be the biggest rule in marketing. If you're not repelling, you're not really attracting.
Yep.
Right. You have to, in order to attract the people you want, you have to repel the people you don't want. So I think they're just really, really good marketers and they know what to say to attract the people they want and repel the people they don't. And I think that's a difference. I don't think you have to say things you don't want to say, but you can't be vanilla. Like instead of being like, what I see certain amounts of entrepreneurs making this mistake, doesn't speak to every entrepreneur is making this mistake. But no one wants to say that because then they get hit with Twitter. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not true. That's not true. And they don't realize they have to say that to attract the person that breaks through their belief system and be like, yeah, I'm making those mistakes versus like, if you're so vanilla and you're trying to appeal to everyone, you're not really going to get your message to cut through. So I could even be better at that because I'm guilty of that where I want to post something and I'm like, I don't know if I want to stand. Is this the hill I want to die on today?
Yeah.
Like, and I choose not. And then I'm like, I probably should have. But yeah, guess what? You want to be the reason why people don't post and rise to the top in personal brands. It's tall poppy syndrome. They don't want to stick their neck out because the ones that stick their neck out are the ones that get their neck chopped off.
Totally true. And I think that comes back to who do you want to be? What type of lifestyle you want to live? Because take it for what it's worth. Some people are really good at just not reading or listening to anything.
Look, Gandhi had haters. People hated Gandhi. People hate Mother Teresa, right? If they had X today or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, or Facebook and Instagram, there'd be people literally trolling them. So just goes to show you if Mother Teresa and Gandhi could get hatred, I think we just need to toughen up a little bit and speak our truth.
Yeah, no, so true. Well, Jason, thank you so much for this interview today. With kind of wrapping things up, like where are you at with like everything you're doing with coaching, and how can people get in touch with you if they're
I mean,
interested in working with you?
at Jason Portnoy across all social media platforms. The coaching side's amplifyconsulting.co. But I mean, hit me up on any social channel, LinkedIn, X, Meta, and any one of those things. Message me. More than happy to chat with you, whether you're fit for the agency, whether you're fit for coaching, or whether you just need a little tap in the right direction, a little free tap in the right direction. This is what I love to do. You look at energy producing and energy draining results. If you told me go create an SOP for this, this, and this, it would take me 7 months because my energy would get drained like that. You put me on a coaching call talking to entrepreneurs and helping them, my energy goes like up. It goes like through the roof, and I could do it for hours and hours and hours. So I really like doing it. And you'd be surprised when I do some podcasts. Sometimes I tell people, and not many of them take me up on it. But the ones that do, I literally jump on a call with them and we'll have a conversation, even if it's to sell them nothing. And maybe that's because Damon John did that for me when I was an entrepreneur trying to figure everything out myself. And if Damon John could do it, who am I to not do it?
Absolutely. And closing remarks. What's a one piece of closing advice that you'd give to someone who's maybe struggling right now in their business when it comes to this balance or some of these big financial goals that they've set for themselves?
There's a breakdown between what you're saying you want and what your true belief is. And maybe you need to develop a new belief system. Maybe you're running on an old belief system, or you think it has to be done a certain way, and that contradicts what your want is. But when your value and belief system contradict with what you're saying you want, you get stuck and you can't scale. So I could give tons of advice here of like, know your numbers, reverse engineer, do all this, figure out what this is. But I zone in on, and this is where the woo stuff come in that I never wanted to work on. But anytime I felt stuck, and I don't believe you're ever stuck because you could always move wherever you want to go, but it's always because I had some belief pattern that wasn't serving me anymore. And you look at the most successful people on the planet. If you're listening to this and you're looking at people who are more successful than you in your space, the chances of them being more skilled than you, smarter than you, or anything like that is probably minuscule. It's that they have a different way of thinking and a different way of belief system than you do. And
100%.
Your wants are contradicting with what your belief system is.
No, I love that. Thank you. Absolutely. Jason, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
today. Yeah, it was great. Thanks.